Welcome to All Right in Sin City, a podcast about writers and writing in the Windsor, Detroit region. Your podcasters today are
Irene Moore Davis, author, educator, and local historian.
Sarah Jarvis, former bookseller, publishing rep, and literary festival chair.
and me, Kim Conklin, Windsor-based writer and filmmaker. In this All Right in Sin City podcast, we'll feature a live recording of a special event in Windsor. Today, you'll hear the completion of an interview with award-winning fiction author Casey Plett, recorded at Biblioasis. Interviewing Casey is Windsor poet Vanessa Shields. Part 1 of the interview was posted last week. Casey Plett is the author of the short story collection A Safe Girl to Love and the novel Little Fish, which won the Amazon Canada First Novel Award. She's also the co-editor of the anthology Meanwhile Elsewhere, Science Fiction and Fantasy from Transgender Writers, and she wrote a column on transitioning for McSweeney's Internet Tendency. Casey's essays and reviews have appeared in the New York Times, Maclean's, The Walrus, Plentitude, and the Winnipeg Free Press. She is the winner of a Lambda Literary Award for Best Transgender Fiction, and she was a past finalist for the 2015 Dane Ogilvy Prize for LGBTQ Emerging Writers. She lives in Windsor, Ontario. She's being interviewed by Windsor author Vanessa Shields.
Yeah, and I felt that it was, you really were like plopped us into these folks' lives, and everything from like not wanting to get up to go to work and laying in bed and sitting in the chair and wrapping yourself up in a blanket and having a drink. Like, there was a lot of day-to-day, hourly things that we do that are often like not in, they're just sort of gleaned over. Like going to the bathroom and eating, like your characters eat, which is great. And also, people never use toothpaste when they brush their teeth on television or in movies. I don't understand this either. But anyway, there's toothpaste in here. There's like real peeing on the toilet and it's important because it does build the character, right? And it builds the relationship with the reader to the character, that this is a really intimate moment. Like, she's got to go to the bathroom and she's feeling pain in her, on her parts because of whatever she did the night before. And that's real shit. Like, that happens. So
yeah.
Then I can, it's just another layer of being able to relate.
Thanks. Yeah, and I feel like it's like, I feel like anybody who's taken a writing class, whenever you write a sentence, I was like, no, that is like boring stuff. Like, that's like not even work. And like, yeah, if you don't write it well,
exactly.
And I'm being a little snarky when I say that, but like, there are things like that like put you in a character's body where like, even just like a sentence or two here and there, or just like a small period can like put you in this person who is walking and talking and doing these things, right? So I'm glad you felt that way. Thank you.
Let's talk about community again. You also are the one of the editors of this beautiful collection called Meanwhile Elsewhere, which is science fiction and fantasy from transgendered writers. And it's, if you like science fiction and fantasy, it's super fun. And so tell me about this. How was this born? And what else were you writing in your life at this time? Like, tell me about your writing life when this came about. And also
sure.
for sale. This is really fun. Good, lots of fun, sexy stuff in there too.
That is very true.
Robot sex.
Robots.
That's good.
So this book came out. The concept of this book came out right after I published my first book, actually, A Safe Girl to Love. And that summer, Topside Press, the same people who put my first book out, they were talking about putting together this anthology, the sci-fi anthology. It was thought of trans writers because most transsexuals are big freaking nerds. Not most, but like a sizable, it's more than a small minority. We'll put it that way. Yeah. And I'm actually like not a sci-fi fantasy person at all. But Kat, who was co-editing it with me, she said, I would really love you to come on and do this with me. And I was like, why me? Like, I like read Star Wars books when I was 10 and that was cool, but it's been a while since then, and then she was like, don't worry, like, honestly, like, it is kind of like, the line, and she actually had a very, like, good nuanced view of it. She was like, honestly, the line between genre fiction and what you're doing is so overblown, that line doesn't actually exist. Right. Like, I'm happy to, like, be, like, a spec fic sort of resource here, but, like, the same things that apply to writing compelling short fiction, it goes both ways. And so it's like, okay, thanks. So, and we put a call out for most of 2015, and we let the call it for a really long time to ensure that like people could like develop stories, and they had like a long time to give us something. And we spent about a year editing it. We divided it up. So
were you together? Like, were you in the same room, or were you doing
no?
stuff
She lived
through email?
She lived in New York, and I was in Ontario. I was in Toronto for most of it, although I was here for some of it. But we met up a few times in person to discuss stuff.
Yeah.
But we both read every submission. We just kind of decided to line up together, but then we went off and we like fully edited the other stories individually. Yeah, and it was such a fun project. And another cool thing about this is that, like, I don't know, I have like a weird relationship to publicize my own work, where I'm like, why? But no, I wrote that. It's weird. Why are you doing that? Why are you reading that? But I was like, no, these stories are so good. Like, everyone needs to read them. It was that was easy. Anyway, and I don't know. I also, it was so nice to most of the people in this lots of people. Okay, I would say most of the people in this book either had not been published before, or they had not been published. They had not been published widely.
Yeah.
And that was a really gratifying thing to work on, you know, and people who, and that kind of took some extra time, right?
Yeah.
Because not everyone's used to being edited, not everyone's used to like what that means. But it was so fulfilling and really, I don't know, really joyous. Yeah.
Do you think you'd want to do something like that again?
It was so much work that I would be very parsimonious with what I said yes to. But I would like to edit again. Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of. I got actually. It was after editing this that I was right before I started working at the press arm in Biblioasis, where I was like, maybe we'll work on other people's books for a while. Like, that sounds all right. So, in a sense, doing this actually led me to
Biblioasis.
Indeed.
Awesome. Tell me. Do you believe in writer's block? Let's talk about that, because that's a question that comes up all the time. Like, besides, like, give me advice. I'm a new writer.
Yeah.
Tell us, you know, how you feel about that. Do you believe in it? Is it real? Do you experience it?
I believe in it, but I haven't experienced it the way that it seems to be commonly talked about.
Okay.
To me, like, if I sit down to write and then, like, I don't know, my ridiculous rabbit brain is always interested in something.
Yeah.
So I do believe in sure, like, when you sit down, you're like, here's a project that I'm going to work on, and your brain's like, no, not at all, nope. Or, you know, it's kind of like I did. Teacher once who described it once as like, you know, like you're driving a car and you're like, we're going this way, the car's like, you're like, no, and the car is just going this way. So I do kind of believe in like, for me at least, like, you know, so I was like, well, that project's not going to work on today, but as long as I can kind of listen to myself, like, no, I don't have writer's block, because I will find a way to work on something.
Right.
Which again, going backward, is how my first book got made in the first place. Yeah. I don't know. What about you?
I'm like have so much bursting in my brain all the time that I'm half the time the characters are just pissed at me and waiting. Like, when are you gonna let me out? And then so I feel like I'm always catching up. All right. Tell me. Do you have any quirky writing process things that you do? Like, you have to have the same cup, or I don't know, you always drink tea. Is there any kind of similarity when you sit down to do the actual writing? Like, do you write onto your laptop? Or type right onto it?
Onto the laptop. I have a few things. For one, I have found that I'm not a person who can work at a desk.
Okay. Oh.
And this has taken a long time to learn, and be like, oh yes, well now you're at the desk, and I sit down and like, this just feels so good.
Yeah.
And I, like,
okay, that's really interesting.
Yeah. I'd always just, you know, I don't know why I have this, like, residue Mennonite aspirations to something, I don't know, where I'm just like, well, of course, like, a writing thing would happen at a desk at a proper thing, and not, like, on the couch in your pajamas lying down in some terrible for your back position. Like, that's not how that would happen. But, so that's one thing. Yeah. Two is that I find that
when you're at home, you're cozy, you're, like, not at a desk, you're on your sofa, whatever.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Bent over my coffee table.
Comfy first, and then an hour goes by and your coffee's cold, and you're like, oh shit, I can't move my back.
Coffee's a different thing. Yes, absolutely. Another thing I find is that, like, I need to move. Yeah. So, especially if I'm, like, actually getting fortunate enough to put in the long day of writing, I will, like, then go to a cafe and I'll be there for an hour or so, and then I have to move my physical space around. I find I cannot be in the same physical space for hours and write. That just is not. Yeah. That just kind of makes my brain kind of run into like a big dirt rut.
Yeah.
There's one other thing I wanted to answer about your question. What was it? When I'm editing, like when I'm
Yeah.
have something I'm finished, then I have to put it on a piece of actual physical paper. I have to print it out. I have to take it somewhere and I have to mark it up with a pen.
Yeah.
I find that if I'm editing something, if I look at it on a computer, then it just looks like a jumble of words. I was like, I wrote these, they're fine.
Yep.
Like, what's the problem? You know? And then if I print them out on paper, I look over like, oh no, like that's who did this?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm agree. I agree. I agree. I have to print stuff out too. It's a lot of recycling but and like you scratching it out and the arrow that says this half a sentence goes back here and then move that here and
Right?
oh my god, I spelled the theirs wrong or whatever, you know, like you just can't. I just can't see that when it's on the computer.
And it's so valuable. Like I always feel like I don't know. I always feel like it's easy to have this kind of sense of disconnect of like what you're doing and what a book is. When honestly, it's like, you know, like I feel like the process it helps me is if I was like, oh man, that was a stupid way to say that. You know, like that part of my brain has to be able to engage with my own writing as if it's a book and give it that its own respect.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I feel it the same way. So, you are coming off a barrage of beautiful awards.
I've been very fortunate.
Yep. And what can you tell us? No, you don't have to tell us what you're working on, but if you are working on something, how you're feeling about it. Has the process sort of kicked in yet with what you're working on?
Yeah, I'm working on a few things. I have a screenplay that I'm about halfway done, which is super exciting. Which feels just like, I don't know, working with like magical Disney fantasy land or something, you know. Especially because, you know what, writing screenplays, so like, when you write fiction, you have to be responsible for the end product, right? If you write a screenplay, the idea is that you just give it to somebody else, and then it's their problem. They don't have to worry about it anymore. I know, it sounds so nice. Anyway, let's see. And then I have a novel that I have like in infancy, like baby stages, and then I have another collection of short fiction that is like, I don't know, like about maybe like a third of the way done. So.
Are you doing anything different than what we've read so far? Like trying a different format, a different genre? Like, so maybe it's, well, I don't think it's going to be science fiction, but can you say like if it's sort of the same veinish of... Or you don't know yet, maybe it's too early.
In the sense of it being like realist fiction type stuff, I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's probably what I'm always going to be writing no matter what.
Yeah.
So in that sense, yes.
Okay.
But
do you feel any pressure? Like self-pressure or pressure from, I don't know,
sometimes
readers who are like, oh, she won all these awards, she better write another good book.
Sometimes, but actually, I've been fortunate enough so before I wrote my first book, I won this online column contest for the McSweeney's website. McSweeney's is this like super, especially in like U.S. literary circles, is a small-known literary magazine.
Okay.
And both times after I had that published, and after I had my first book published, both of those periods were followed by really intensely awful periods in my own personal life for reasons that have nothing to do with those things. So anyway, but the upshot is this: I feel like I'm very much entangled. Like, who cares if like you do well? Like, whatever. It's just good. So I, and obviously with this particular round of things, I've been very financially fortunate. So that's like a different thing. But I think that I have been lucky enough to sort of uncouple like whatever I make in my art to like whether my life is, you know, and I feel like if those things were more attached, I would feel more pressure. And I also kind of feel like, I don't know, I remember after I had finished my first book and I had sent it off, I don't mean to be too morbid, but there was part of me that was like, okay, like I want to do this all my life, everything else is just a bonus. You know? I was even like, okay, again, kind of morbid, but I was like on a plane and like there was some turbulence and I was like, well, I wrote the book, so that's... That's
pretty awesome.
Like, okay, so that's fine. Like,
wow, that's cool.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
That's
so
like, I feel like it's a big creative freedom that if you don't have that, like even a little bit of, or you only have a little bit of that attachment to the outcome, it really frees up the creative process when you're creating and writing and birthing something that like you're not attached to anything except for what's happening and what you're writing. Like that sometimes can be really hard to do.
Right, exactly. I feel like when I
Yeah.
start thinking about like how something might be treated in public or how it like just
Yeah.
locks me up
Yeah.
so intensely. So.
Yeah. Okay, quick question. What are you reading now? What books are you reading?
I am reading A Mind Spread on the Ground by Alicia Elliott, which is a book of essays, which is so good. It's almost certainly here somewhere.
Yeah.
I am reading It's a Big Deal, a book of poetry by Dina Del Bucchia that is like both like the hilarious, sad, absurd like mixture is like BoJack Horseman great. It is so good. Like
Sweet,
I hope we
sweet.
have it here. It's a Big Deal, poetry, Dina Del Bucchia.
Okay.
But- awesome. We do, folks. You heard it here. And then I'm just finishing Reproduction by Ian Williams, which is this like epic 400+ page novel, which is just like one of my favorite things that I've read in a really long time. He was also up with me for the Amazon First Novel Award.
Okay, sweet.
And his book is just amazing.
Sweet.
Yeah, I'm like 40 pages away, but I feel
Yeah.
I have no qualms with
That's
telling
awesome.
everyone to buy it.
Okay, and like just indulgent kind of thing that you might be embarrassed to say that you do and love. Doesn't have to be related to writing or creativity at all, but like you watch Gossip Girl or like some secret about you that you can share that you can don't have to wait till you die to know. You know, like you like poutine at 4 a.m. I don't know. Like
Who
some
doesn't like poutine at 4
I know. Bad example. You know, you have lots of shoes. I don't know.
No, I need more shoes.
Do you want to think about it?
Part of me wants to ask Sybil over there, but I just don't really want to know.
The car's messy.
The car's messy. Okay, that's exactly the type of thing.
My
to
car
do.
is really messy.
All
It's
right.
pretty awful.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. I'd still take a ride if it was a cold Winnipeg night. I don't care how messy your car is. I'd be getting in.
I know, right? So, whatever.
Awesome. Okay.
That was Vanessa Shields interviewing author Casey Plett at Biblioasis. In our next podcast, we'll have 2 more readings for you. We'll hear from award-winning science fiction authors Timothy S. Johnston and Kathy Koja, recorded at a recent Chi Series reading at the Fog Lounge in Windsor.
Thanks for joining us. Look for more episodes of All Right in Sin City wherever you listen to podcasts, or check out our website, allrightinsincity.com. For information and announcements of new podcasts, sign up to our email list or follow us on Facebook and Twitter.